Hello and welcome to the stream. It's the Flight Factor A350 in xPlane 12 is second time the charm. For those wondering why am I saying that, well, tried streaming this the other day and it was a complete disaster because when we tried to get the weather data link through the system, it decided to completely crash the game. And so what we're going to do today is kind of a similar kind of a thing, but not using either any sort of requests with weather nor data link. And so if that sounds like interesting, do skip the time until stream begins. Just a few moments left there. We have got a plan in. It's going to be from Washington Dulles over to JFK in New York. Flight time around 50 minutes or so, and it's all planned. And not only that, the flight plan is in kilos today. I do like to roll with the old Imperial, the pounds, but alas, it would seem that the Airbus, generally prefers metric anyway, the kilos. And I thought, why not catch up with the times? And yeah, so here we go. All right, that'll think will do. Let's come on over then into xPlane 12. And here we go, cold and dark, we're in the cockpit. I'll have a quick glance outside for those who are maybe interested. Starting, of course, in the terminal building. Views glitchy as ever. Microsoft, what am I talking about? xPlane 12 Laminar, they did add the ability for these gateways to connect up to aircraft using the Shift G menu. It would seem, however, that Flight Factor A350 not yet compatible with it. I've been at 2 or 3 different stands. None of them would seem let you have it. So again, minor thing, but it does look a little bit better if you get your air bridges connected to your aircraft, at least if you're streaming. But alas, that's not the case. That said, of course, the Flight Factor A350 does come with some models, including this little guy that is having a nice close inspection of the massive intake there for the engines. Of course, one of, if not the largest engine for any commercial airline ever produced. You see, this guy here, the engine is that tall and tall again. In fact, I believe somebody said somewhere that the size of the engine here is as big as, or even slightly bigger than the entire fuselage of a Boeing 737. So if somebody wants to check if that is the case and let us know, I'd appreciate it. But with that said and done, about enough waffle there. What I will do is briefly show us Sim Toolkit Pro app. And the reason being, this is the flight that we are intending to roll with today. You can see us down there is our departure here. So just to the west of the Washington Town Central, we'll be flying over Delaware, up the East Coast, and then into JFK. Interestingly enough, for whatever reason, JFK a bit weird when it comes to SIDS and stars. And SimBrief has not given us one. They've given us runway 22 left, is what we're going to expect for JFK. We do got a SID out of our departure. We see the flight plan there, but again, there is no arrival, no approach. So we'll have to see how Flight Factor A350 lets us deal with that when we're on the way, which is going to be part of it. And that's about as complicated as I was want to make the entire thing, just in case. So let's jump on back. Let's jump on back now into xPlane 12. I'm going to see if I can bring the Sim Toolkit overlays on top, and it would seem not. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Kind of temperamental, a little bizarre, that's for sure. All right, coming inside then. I'm sure like 3 out of 4 people skip to this point anyway. So let's go make a start. Sounds all the way up. I'll keep it down just for a moment, and just so you can get a little flavour of what these are like. that they're at least not lighting up in the way you'd expect. So top to bottom, left to right is my plan. I'm going to leave passenger data open until basically we're ready to roll. I'll probably forget anyways, but regardless. Actually, before I get that on, let's get the old ground power connected, and then I'll continue there. Yeah, so flight factor, for those who've never had a flight factor aircraft before, is very finicky with regards to what services do you have outside and what doors and hatches do you have open. You know, if you've got like the Zebo or the Tolis, you'll know you can just load the aircraft, you know, whether doors are open or not, providing you're stationary on the ground usually. Though sometimes you can even change it mid-flight. Flight factor goes a step further. You have to have, you know, the right doors and hatches open. These guys in place, and again, these little models here are from the Flight Factor A350. They're not to do with the add-ins like your ground handling and stuff, which is something else again. Look at that, I never realised that. They've actually got a dude inside the cargo bay there. It's a shame it's not animated. It'd be nice to see him grabbing the luggage and handling it very delicately and precisely. I'm sure nobody working on luggage has ever been throwing it around. Alright, so working back top to bottom now. So let's get the ATIS, the IRSs, the INSs, the gyros. Spinning up and aligning. We got that side basically dealt with. Hydraulics, left and right, a dark cockpit, so it's not really going to do anything until the engines are on, but being a dark cockpit and Airbus, you know, they like things dark and automatic. Externals 1 and 2. And we'll tie that off. 10, 11 o'clock position. Airflow normal, open the cross bleed, or at least set it to automatic, I should say. Okay, so the smoking signs are on, seatbelts are off, emergency lights are armed, logo has got an automatic position, but I think for now we'll put that into the on. We'll certainly turn the nav lights on. Everything else remains off while we're at the gate, but we are powered. I'm going to set cabin out to automatic. Target, just going to move it to the 12 o'clock position. We've also then got the cabin vertical speed, automatic, and then I'm just going to reduce the manual dial down. I assume automatic basically has these two switches redundant. These are in case you go manual, but just in case we do go manual, I like to go something like that. Alright, on the third and final column then from top to bottom, we've got cooling and cab fans. Unable to actually make any obvious no change on the any sort of audio that I can tell anyway. Alright, that's everything turned up, and once again, I'll tell you what, let's do a imaginary. We are transporting some cats and dogs in the forward cargo bay, so we'll warm that up to about 18-20 degrees so that they're comfortable. We'll leave the bulk as is. So aircraft starting up, and again, no data link of any kind. I don't want to risk that disaster again, and we'll see But that said, I've not preparing this in any way. I've not already had a dry run through anything, because that defeats, if I prepare everything and everything that doesn't work, I just leave it to one side. And when it looks good, oh, well, I'll do a stream on this. I mean, that's nice if you're just trying to make things look good, but it's not nice if you're trying to share an accurate picture of how things really are. And, and if you're trying to just make everything look good, granted, at some point you'd start and get the companies writing to you saying, oh, could you push this, promote this product on our behalf kind of thing. And nothing against people that do that, but it's disingenuous when you cut out everything that doesn't work. At least I say so. If you don't agree, well, then I'll just say everything's amazing. Wow, look at that switch. It's amazing. Look at the detail on it, Now, there are those people, aren't there? Mind you, I should maybe get involved with that, and then maybe I would get paid a cent or two once in a while. Certainly not on this channel, but... So yeah, we got 3 lights here, the floodlights, the footlights, and the pedestal floodlights. We've also got trim light, and as far as I'm aware, trim lights are like the, I've forgotten what they call them on the Boeing, but it's, if I recall right, it's sort of the backlighting for all the text, rather than a bulb that just lights up the entire cockpit. Okie doke, so let's come over to the airplane menu here. We are set to load, and we'll get our flight plan on here, which I've put in ahead of time. And yeah, so pushback start in approximately 23 minutes time. We'll see if we can stick with that. Relatively short flight, as we've discussed. Ground distance 273 nautical miles. Reckons we're going to be up to 29,000 feet. And weights, everything today is in kilos. By the way, the FF there, nothing to do with flight factor, but of course average fuel flow. Reckons we're going to use about 5.5 tons an hour, or just shy thereof on average. Of course, it being a short flight, not really the best case scenario for these kind of aircraft. Of course, the A350 and the Boeing Dreamliners, a bit like the Boeing 777 as well, they like to run and do the uber long range cruises. That's where they make their money. These huge engines, very efficient when it comes to that sort of thing. Alright, so let's see. First off, let's come over to the passengers side of things. And yeah, SimBrief, of course, just gives you an overall number. It doesn't break it down between first, business, and economy. That is something that we're going to have to do ourselves. We do got a totalizer there of 271. Usually, unless there's a reason not to, SimBrief gives you like anywhere from like 97, 8, 9, even 100% capacity. So we'll have to see. So let's start with 11 in first class. And, like more and more modules these days, you get like a visual representation of the seats taken. I don't think you can manually change it. It's just you can change the number. They are where they are. So let's 15. So there we go. Let's go for 16. And then see how many we can get him back. I seem to recall it was about 180. So let's go for 200. And we can see that orange there indicating that there's a problem. So let's go short this time, 170. Now that's in the green. 180. Well, it's more than 180. Let's try 190. Okay, very close indeed then to the original. Let's go for 195. That'll do. So 195 and 16 is going to give us 201. Sorry, 211. I'm just thinking, can we get... There's no way we're getting 60 guys in first class, but we'll try. No. And so passenger numbers on SimBrief are off. We cannot get enough. Yeah, there's nowhere near we're getting enough. There's only 3 seats, what looks like, available there in the back. So we'll make up for the weight discrepancy using the cargo. 20. see exactly how many can we get. 44 is a no-go. 39, no. 36. 36 exactly. That's in the green. Every seat taken. I will ease off on the back. I don't want a tail strike. And this aircraft, you will tail strike if you get too many in the back. Not enough in the front before you get your cargo. I've done it before on xPlane 11. It's embarrassing. And if anything, it would mess up your gyro alignment. Not to mention invalidate the legality of the takeoff. Yeah, so let's have a look. So cargo-wise, we were looking at 8.3 tons. Payload total, basically 30. And currently, we see their passenger weight is just over 20 tons, 20,649 kilos. Again, the way every module deals with payloads and fuel layouts seems to vary somewhat. And this is the way the Flight Factor A350 does it, which interestingly is completely different to something like the Flight Factor 767. It's day and night different. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. We got the total payload down there, currently 27 and a bit. Apparently ours is near a 30, so let's see. That's 32. 29.75. There we've got 29.8. Basically, it's a match. I wish I could move this guy forward a bit. What if I put one there? Let's zero that off. Again, just making absolutely sure we don't got a tail strike. We've got a 0 fuel CG here. Let's just change the numbers. Yeah, that was really high on the CG. Even 39 to me feels a little high. So I don't mind putting a little more weight here on the front. 25, 32. I'll tell you what, I'll go with yeah, let's go with that. Let's implement that. I realize it's going to put us slightly overweight off the plan by about 3 and a bit tons, but that's fine. I'd rather be slightly overweight than risk slamming the tail in and having the trim all the way off. Let's implement that and hope for the best. I'm going to zoom out. Implement. You see there was a slight lurch there, but alas, the nose wheel's not flung off into the air. We got that slight sound of the passengers boarding. What's this? Oh, we got an alarm when we opened the cockpit. In fact, look at this. We've even got some passengers modelled. Nice to see, at least in the first class area. Guy looking very smart there. These two got massive grin on the face. Certainly him. He knows he's getting his end to her tonight after treating her to a first class here on the A350. But don't count your chickens, pal, because it's me that's flying. We may not get there. Right, back into the cockpit then. And let's initialize this whole box of tricks. And as far as I recall, these systems here, left and right, were basically... You couldn't have the... You know, like you get your FMC on both sides or your MUC-2s on both sides. This aircraft wasn't really like that, if I recall. You've only ever got your, let's call it MUC-2 because it's Airbus on the left, although it's in the screen form. And then if you did need a secondary one, it was this one back here, which actually TOLIS have let them use. And I did read the bump, and it is licensed in from TOLIS, which again is... kind of interesting, makes you sort of wonder what was going on there. Of course, being Flight Factor, you do get the guy up the back asking you things, and so let's have a listen what he wants.
Captain, do you really want the passengers to plunk out their eyes? Please turn on the cabin lighting.
So he wants us to turn on the cab lighting. Fair enough, seems like a reasonable request, and it's one of those that, if I recall, is buried somewhere on one of these screens. We'll see if we can find it. Cabin, there we go, cabin lighting, and you know, we turn it on like that and then they're happy. Also simulates water level as well as waste level, so for your longer flights, something you may or may not wish to care about, and when you get to the other end, worth dealing with. If you're doing your hops, you need the ground ULD, I think, or the cleaning truck, it's one or the other. Alright, while we wait for all that to take place, let's have a little look. How is the load? I guess, oh no, there we see there's a timer, so that it's not an instantaneous thing. Even though we see the aircraft instantly lurch instantaneously, apparently not fully automatic. We also got the fuel to go, so let's have a little look there. Let's check back here. And we got the numbers here, 11.7 on the tons, and again they break it off into the various categories. So let's come to page 1. Let's see how close we can get it to what they say. So the trip 4.1, it's going to be destination. In fact, we can be super precise on this. No rounding off. 4112. The alternate there, Boston 3550. We'll see how accurate this is. We've got the contingency there, which is usually, what, 15 minutes at full power, 1366. We've got the APU time. Well, we're not going to have the APU on all day. Let's give it 10 minutes. I'm sure that's slightly excessive even then. Taxi. Well, we've got taxi fuel. I say, yeah, there it is. It's based on a 20-minute taxi. I think that also perhaps a little generous. So let's shave off 100 kilos or so, and we'll make that. I tell you what, we'll cut it in half. We'll go 250 for 10 minutes. It's based on minutes here, so we'll put in 10 minutes for 250. And then we've got the fuel to remain, which is going to be a FinRes here, 2167. Okie doke, let's implement all of that. We can see approximate range based on all of this is going to be just shy of 1,500 kilometers, not nautical miles. Interesting measurement of it there. I guess all the weights are metrics, but usually you don't measure distance in kilometers when it comes to certainly the cockpit end of any sort of calculations, surely. Either way, let's implement that. And we may as well keep this on screen because I don't want to load anything in. Here's our route. So KIAD, Washington Dulles there, runway 30. We'll just have a little look at that when it's at home, see exactly what they're talking about. Yeah, so we're there, fairly central. Terminal B, if I recall right. Yeah, Terminal B about halfway along. And so could be relatively short taxi here into the wind. Let's have see if we can get ATIS on 134.85. Then we'll be right back. VHF, let's tune in number 2. Click 134.85. Click there. No. Click there. There we go. Okay. So relatively straightforward then. Click there to change. Click there to swap it. You've got your standby. You've got radios 1, 2, and 3. 3, of course, being used by the data. We've even got the squawk code down there, which is a slightly unusual place to put it, but certainly keeps it visual. All right, let's see if we can hit this guy up then. So VHF 2, turn it up and turn it on.
Wind 210 degrees.
Sounds good to me.
Knots. Visibility 9 miles. Rain. Sky conditions. Fuel at 6,000. Temperature 5. Dew point 2. Altimeter 2982. Advise on initial contact. You have information. Whiskey.
2982. We've got whiskey.
Washington Dulles International Information. Whiskey 1700 Zulu. Arriving runways 19 right. 19 center. Departing runways 19 center. 19 left. Weather. Wind 2.
All right, so not runway 30. It's 19 center or 19 left for departure.
6,000. Temperature.
All right, so let's shut her up. So based on that, what's in the flight plan goes out the window. We're going to go with ATC. So 19 center. Yeah, okay, we'll take that one. That looks to be potentially, can't remember now, is it 19 left? I'll tell you what, let's just stick with 19 center It's going to be Zulu all the way up, and then their 191 on the heading. So that's going to be a slight amend to our departure SID. Let's have a little look. A guard is going to be our initial waypoint. So let's see. We want 19 center that rigs us up with a guard. Departure. Jacoby 4, are you going to give us... Oh, look, it is. Okay, so it's basically any runway, what looks like radar vectors, Jacoby, and then onto, you know, whichever transition. In our case, a guard. So, yeah, we'll roll with that. So, it's same SID as before, seeing as we're waiting on radar vectors. So, let's see if we can start filling this in. So we've got the init page, flight number, and well, we'll just make one up. We're not online today. I did want to fly as Lufthansa, but then I think I got the American livery. So let's go with American 515 from KIAD. By the way, frame rate's relatively nice for this for an aircraft. Some aircraft do tank the frame rate a little bit. Looks like this one not too far away from 60, although we start looking into the scenery, it does drop off a little bit. I do got everything maxed out on 2560 by 1440, with the one exception of view distance is one below the maximum, and I forget what those ones are called, but certainly object density and that, you know, number of objects and that is high, because even with the default scenery, which I have default scenery for everything, it looks pretty good. I do got the Orbix UK, but of course we're a couple of miles away from the UK at this moment. All right, back in time then, or inside rather, let's continue. So KIAD going to KJFK. Now we can load in, I seem to think, the flight plan, and I seem to think this worked okay. And it loads in from your drive locally, so it doesn't connect up to the data link. And again, I'm not going to do that. So let's have a little look. Flight plan data link in progress. He says, and then the data link would appear to connect. Fingers crossed it don't crash. Well, we know it's correct because it's filled in the alternate there at Boston. Now it's put in the Lufthansa 359 and got the cruise cost index. So I take back what I said. The data link today seeming a little bit more luck than we had the other day. I still don't want to tinker with the wind. I'm not even going to click on that button. I just can't risk it. IRS, how are we doing here? Well, they say ready. Let's hit line. Ta-da. I'm not sure if you have to do that. Normally aircraft do it automatically when the minute was down to 0, but we saw it said 0 and it wasn't aligned. Departure. Okie doke. So, ignoring what the flight plan says, because ATIS says otherwise, it's going to be 19 center. It's a nice long runway. This, I've noticed this before on this aircraft, the A350. You start selecting things and it doesn't automatically fill stuff in down here. But it is working, just while it's temporary, even though sometimes it looks like it's not been selected, it did seem to work. So let's zoom out. Even see 19 center selected there. SID, it was, I'm calling it Jacoby. Does it actually have a better name than that? Jacoby 4 it is. I'm sure there's somebody that in the area knows exactly what that stands for. I'm not from the area. I'm calling it Jacoby. Jacob Yankee or Jacoby 4. And then the guard transition, as we've stated before, which brings us to this bit here. And then that hooks us up with our initial waypoint here, a guard. Okay. A guard. So all that's in. So we'll hit Tempe. And there we see it. The reason for the disco, again, is for the ATC radar vectors that we are expecting, which are prescribed on the SID. So we'll leave that disco in. We'll vector ourselves up as though radar vectored, and then we'll carry on. So here we see this Rigner's Jacoby. And yes, I'm going to hit insert. I'm happy with that. And oh yeah, the scroll button. Sorry, so I'm looking for the scroll button down here. It's of course here. There we go. So it's like, again, the up and down arrow. Imagine it like the, you know, your iPhone or your Android or whatever. If you put your finger, if you want to scroll down, you don't scroll your hand down. Think about it. You put your hand on the screen or your finger and you push it upwards to make the page or the however you want to view it scroll down. And if you imagine you're moving a piece of paper across the desk, if you want to read further down, you push the paper upwards across the desk and it sounds kind of backwards because back in the day the down arrow scrolled downwards. So this is, you just got to think of it like moving a piece of paper across on a phone rather than in the direction you want to go. So the up arrow, you're pushing the paper upwards to read further down. And I always feel like I do that bit to death, but I feel like once I explain it to death, people don't say, oh, it's going backwards. It is kind of going backwards, but think about it like moving your finger on the phone. It's the right way. Press that to move the finger up and starts to make sense. All right, this goes through then to, this is our departure here, all the way to a guard. That's the end of the index departure. Helpfully shown here, Jacoby 4. So one thing that Boeing's I really feel miss on their FMCs is on the legs page showing the active either departure or the arrival. Airbus showing it there, which is, you know, as they do on the you know, the one cockpit Airbus, which this isn't. Clearly it's very different to the one cockpit Airbus style. Alright, so from a guard to Donhill then, this is our flight plan that has been loaded in on the data link without any issues, which is nice to see. From Donhill, it's the Victor 229 airway, which we again helpfully highlighted here. We see the intermediate waypoints there, which should roll off at Pansy, and indeed there we see Victor 229 rolling off at Pansy. That puts us onto the Victor 44, which should roll us off at, what's that, Carmen? And indeed it does. Then there's the disco, and that's to be expected because there was no star, no approach. It was, we're just told 22 left, and we will sort that out in flight as if you know, the approach controller or center has basically advised us, expect this and that, and we'll rig that up and see how that is you know, doable in the flight. And again, it's a relatively short flight, so we'll see how it is. And so with that in there, I feel that is over and done. I think we can get rid of this until we're ready for taxi, or at least I hope so. We'll see now. So that page is done. So let's come back to the init. We've got the departures nav aid. So there's like you know, when you're doing your diff rip stuff, I guess this is the R on the diff rip. We'll leave all of that auto. We can see it's auto tuned a couple of VOR DMEs as well as an ILS. So yeah, we'll leave that done. Back to the init then. We'll come down. Fuel and load. So this, just to be clear, that when we load the fuel in here, this is not actually like a screen on the aircraft. This is typically what you'd load in on the side tablet there, or even ahead of time using your menus up top. It's built into the cockpit, which kind of makes it seem like it's part of the plane. It's not, and so it can kind of feel like you're having to enter it in twice, but if you imagine this as basically being dispatch or, you know, somebody that's not you on the plane, which is why I don't like the way it's built into the cockpit. Usually when you've got it as a separate tablet or even a menu item, it kind of flows better. But regardless, so we got the taxi fuel, which on here is in minutes and on here is measured in weight. So we'll leave it at 0.5. We know 0499 was 20 minutes, so I guess something like 0.3, you know, 0.25, right? But I think we're getting too precise there, so let's go 03, and it will let us have it. Trip, it says 4.1 and destination 4.1. So that has been loaded in through the datalink. Route reserve 0.6. That clearly has not. That's based off 15%. Alternate is 3 tons. We've got 3.5. I never like rounding up on the alternate and reserves because it gets your master cautions binging a lot more. So if anything, I round it down. Probably not legal, but in the flight sim world, it gets us around. And then we've got the FinRes that they're giving 2.7. And what did we get? Basically 2.1. So discrepancies all over the shop. Hacks numbers 274, cost index 92. That's in from the flight plan. This box here, this JTSNGW, there's been a lot of, I looked it up and there's loads of people online saying, what the hell is this? And the answers range from don't know to it's such and such, but they've not implemented it. And so I'm going to roll with, I don't know what it is, but it's not implemented. So even though it looks like it's a blue to do, I'm going to leave it blank. And I certainly don't want to screw around with it. Based on these weights for the fuel, do they actually know how much fuel we've got on board? It does, 11.7. And so whether we get these numbers exactly right or not, it's irrespective of how much fuel we're carrying. So I'm going to go with that. So yeah, I think we're done here. We've still got some gross weight CGs and fuel on boards here that don't look like they're fully complete. So I'll have to see, before we move anything, make sure that those are coloured in. We've got our performance numbers here, but I'm thinking until we get our exact weights in, again, we can't click. We do got these blue to do, and I'm thinking, do we just confirm these? I mean, zero fuel CG at 60% is clearly not right. So let's try and manually confirm these based on what we see here. So fuel on board, let's start there, seeing as we're on that page, which is 11.7 by 2 kilos. Well, that's already in, but let's just confirm it anyway. 11.7 it is. Zero fuel weight then, so we'll go to the passengers. And zero fuel is 173.4. So see, slight discrepancy there. So 173.4, that's now in. And then the zero CG is 25%, not 60. So well worth double checking there. I'm going to try entering it without the 0.0, see if it'll accept, and it does. So saving a couple of keystrokes there. Now, are you going to let me have this? I'm still wondering, how do we populate the top line there? RS nav aids, everything there. We'll see if it's on one of the other pages. Right, so mailbox isn't there. Nav aids, we've been through that. The init page is this page. If you try and click on something like route summary, I don't believe was ever a thing. If you click on it, yeah, it just says in-ops. So there is that performance page where we can see we need to do this. Let's do some of the other things. So ATC com. This, I am assuming, if not yet done, is going to hook through your Hoppy and basically get your data link onto, your VATSIM and so forth. Don't quote me on that. I don't recall there being a page to put my Hoppy stuff in, but there certainly was the sim brief, as you've seen. So the surveillance page. So thankfully, this is nice and easy. Surveillance, it sounds a little bit creepy, listen to your telephone call-y, but it's more just to do with transponder and stuff. There's a bunch of things to press, but thankfully there is a default switch down here, and if I recall right, before we do that, we've got these systems here. So system 1 for the WEX and the transponders, same for system 2, which is basically my side, your side, right? And then once that's in, this page is basically ready to go. We've got the default. I'm just going to put in the squawk that I like to roll with, 5153. based on the regulars will know. Back when I was a kid, I used to sit in cockpit for the flight, and which included takeoff and landing, usually between Manchester and Frankfurt, visiting my grandparents. And British Airways did used to fly Manchester to Frankfurt, squawking 5153, and coming back was 5155. And yeah, shout out to anybody who may or may not have been on those flights. I flew that regularly that some of the aircrew even recognized me back then, again, seeing my grandparents. All right, so default settings, and we see that boots everything up. Apparently brings us straight on into Tara mode, but with the transponder set to auto, I assume we're not actually in getting resolution advisories already. But yeah, we'll see. And in fact, traffic aware only. So apparently we are squawking incorrectly, you know, considering we're at the gate. So maybe don't boot this onto VATSIM. Maybe, you know, hit standby on the TCAS here. Seeing as we're single player, I'm not going to mess around with it. Squawk has been reset to 2000, so let me try that again. There we go. And all right. So that's that one done. Surveillance. The secondary doesn't seem like that's implemented. DEST doesn't seem to do anything. The flight plan, relatively obvious there. In its page, aircraft status is an INOP 1, IRS departure, fuel and load. I'm still concerned about the gross weight and whatnot up here not being completed, but with everything else done, you know what, I'm just going to go over to the performance page, because we're basically getting probably even a little bit behind. Hi, so takeoff runway 19 center, that's in there. We got the usual options and boxer tricks to go with. It looks like default flaps 2. Transition there 18,000 when we're in the US, so that's correct. We'll have a look. Do we get options for noise? We do, which is in fact, this is a weird kind of a noise. Usually it's like based on speed and height and at what point does your engines roll back, versus do you start accelerating into the sky, and noise abatement, usually you roll the engines back a bit earlier but you start accelerating later. In other words, you get higher quicker before you accelerate, thus, you know, you're getting away from the houses quicker. This seems to be, well, a version of it, but very different to what I'm used to. So we'll do away with that. In any case, where do we get these numbers from? I assume this thing over here. So let's come over to the perf. And seeing as we're about ready to go, once we've done this, let's get the signs on. APU master on. Master. We got the data link. I'm going to leave that switch on, but passenger data, we'll try and remember to turn it off. But for now, we'll let them have their Wi-Fi's and whatnot. We'll put the standby compass on. We'll take a look at that in a bit. And I think APU has been master on long enough to master switch, so we'll boot it up now. Initial on our initial height, should I say, on our departure is 3,000. By that's low. Okay. Oh, 3,000 it is. Do I have that bound? No, I do not. There we go. 3,000 then. Let's put the constraints on. We'll zoom in a bit. We know that's correct, so I'm going to switch to the arc. I really like the vertical profile here that's down there. Now, it's like the Zebo, you know, when you hit center on the Boeing 737, you get that similar kind of thing. I just think the screen on this aircraft is much clearer. It's a lot easier to see, much cleaner display, even though in size, you know, based on the view and the zoom, it's kind of the same, but just looks clearer. All right, takeoff then. Runway slow. I'm just going to go with 0. It's the safe option. A flaps setting, well, why not go with flaps 2, just because That was already in. Runway length, I like it auto-loads all of this. We got the gross weight. Looks like it's pulled all of that in. Together with the headwind, which is nice. No messing around with any of that. Together with gross weight CG. And spits us out very nice and straightforward. 36, 36, 39, flexing 69. I'm going to try type this using the keyboard, and it does work. I seem to recall it did, as long as the window's highlighted. 136, 136, V2 was 39, flaps 2, THS, takeoff shift, flex was 69. To see how that goes. Yeah, so we'll use the full runway length. In fact, I'm guessing if you shift it, ideally it would redo the numbers, but I don't think there's any option to shift anything when it comes to the takeoff calculator. It's just slope and flap setting, and that's it. Got gross weight ticking down there. Did you just see it lose a kilo? That's going to be the APU. See how long it takes to... Well, there we go. So it's about 10-15 seconds per kilo of fuel. Okay, all right. What's he got to say this time?
Oh my god, it's like a refrigerator.
Oh my god. All right, well, there's your APU gen on then, and there's the bleed. Packs jumped to life. There was a deep rumbling. Oh, do you know, I get so nervous when there's that brief pause on the sound on xPlane. It's like, oh, the game's going to crash. Let's just see. Alright, packs on and off, but that makes no difference. I don't know if you can hear it, but certainly if you've got headphones or big speakers, you can hear a rumbling if I shut up. Kind of instantaneous again. Not the best implementation of it I've ever seen, but you know, for some things, sounds are really important, and other people not really bothered about it. But I think when you're sat at home in front of a computer that's trying to replicate flying an aircraft, the sound's actually really important, I think. I'm going to roll with that. Let's not get creative with shifting the takeoff back for an intermediate intersection. We'll just go with it. I think we're ready to go. I remember that with the pedals as I move into my position. Now, we still got some... yeah, so if I just press left pedal, right pedal, see, it kind of a warning that they're only using one pedal, I guess. Right, let's see if we can get rid of some of these. Anti-skid is on. Doors are closed. That's kind of a big one, so let's come over here. Cabin. Ground services. Doors. Close all. Insta-shut. At least the cautions instantly go out, so... Ground equipment. Now, I am sure, but just before... We did get the APU gen. Now we got externals. We see it's on. Let me just check this is the right way round. Yeah, APU gen is off. It's highlighted. So let's make sure that's on. Let's turn off your side first. My side. And APU gen has got it. We still see external is available, which should disappear. I ain't seen it. Where's the... Hey? Oh, I'm looking on the left here. Here we go. Let's try disconnecting my side first. Leave your side in. Just, you know, just like to see. And indeed, yeah, there we see it. My side is no longer available. Your side is. Very minor things, I know, but it's nice to see when things work correctly. All right, let's get rid of everything else. And in theory, we're ready to roll. Now, I'm not going to use the built-in pushback. I'm going to use better pushback. And we'll see if it works. I mean, Look how close, man, that some of these people are stood. Like, as it passed the safety test. And this guy here. Okie doke. I do like, and I know this is pretty much a standard thing for ages, but when there's a bit of wind that you see it just turning the turbine just gently there. It's a nice but an important part of the whole thing. Oh, and by the way, being Flight Factor, they complain if you don't do certain announcements, the big one being the safety. So let's... Doors, play.
Attention all flight attendants, doors to automatic.
Doors to automatic, and give the safety demo.
Ladies and gentlemen, we request your full attention.
And while that's going, console light, we'll turn that on full just in case we go through.
Sign illuminate.
And the internals,
Insert
or is it the PA?
one into the other.
There you go, it's the PA. I just don't want to hear that on full blast.
To release your seatbelt, lift the upper.
Let's plan push. And it was a nose left, tail right. We'll push to about there.
All right, Captain, got the directions. Let me know through the menu when you're ready.
We're ready to go.
Great news, Captain, your tow's coming.
Fantastic. All right, we'll leave this one here on the safety demo. Somebody made a mod on the xPlane 11 version of this whole thing that allowed you to use the Navigraph charts on this second or leftmost monitor, which is great because basically once you've done the safety and you've loaded up the aircraft, this screen is basically redundant, and so to be able to put Navigraph charts and whatnot on there was really nice. So I'm looking forward to see that in xPlane 12. Would the plugin that worked for xPlane 11 work for xPlane 12? I don't know. I don't want to risk it. Certainly after the last time I attempted to fly this aircraft on stream, complete disaster. So this guy's...
All right, looks like the doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect.
Fantastic. Let's get the beacon on then. Let everybody know that we're about to come out the back. And he's about to plug it in. And these guys are about to get squashed. Oh well, we'll watch them get squashed, right? That extra stuff thrown in for 3 here. Some human mutilation. Why not? Oh, he was lucky. But that other guy is about to get squashed real good and proper. Here, watch this. Oh, he's somehow managing to evade getting entirely turned into mincemeat. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's come back inside.
Welcome aboard, Captain. Tow's connected.
Thank you.
Bypass pins inserted. Go ahead and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
Parking brake is killed.
Here comes the pushback. Light them up.
Merci beaucoup. Okay, we is ready to go. So, is these on full brightness? They are. Looks like they need a little bit extra on the display. Engine switches then to ignition. Coming inside. The beacon's already on. Packs are now off. We will monitor all that stuff. Yes, thank you. Cockpit door unlocked. Open. There we go. That's that one resolved. Let's start engine number 2. The usual numbers coming up. Don't know if the engines are really that quiet, but all I can hear is basically the fans and the packs as if they never turned off, even though we were told that they did. I can just about hear a bit of whining from the engine. If I come outside, that's very obvious now. And And again, not the best visual rendition of certainly the inside. I say though, despite the insides of the engines looking, the aircraft, I don't know. I mean, you could say part of it is the livery don't look great, which, well, but even that though, the aircraft, it just feels, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's not the best model or textures. Regardless, let's come back inside. By engine 2, everything there looking green. Let's go ahead with number 1. Or should I be? Hang on, let me imitate one of these other people. Let me just, wow! Just look at the way that thing's spinning. That cone, that's really, really hypnotic. Just wow. Wow. Amazing. And then when something don't go right, they just quickly move the camera or gloss out the way, or they just don't mention it. Parking brake set.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
Okie doke. While we wait for an engine up, by the way, naming no names, but I don't like shills. I just don't like them. If you paid and you don't make it up, when people say, "Oh, this is a promotion for such and such," not a problem with it. Everybody knows. But when it's an under the table kind of a thing, and again, my other channel, I know how it works. I've had the offers myself, and it is under the table. I don't agree with it. I just don't agree with it. I think it's wrong, and I know I'm shooting myself in the foot by saying that because, it's just take the money and shut up and you'll be fine. I don't agree with it. And the thing is, you win no awards for being like that either. You just lose out to everybody who otherwise does.
And we're disconnected. Signal and pin on the right. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
Will do, thanks. All right, so both engines are up and in the green, so let's get that off. I'm not one for running checklists, and this is going to be no different. Flaps 2 for takeoff. I'm going to use my controls, but just to see where is... Okay, so the handle's ways back here. There's 1 and 2. Speed brakes, is it the usual way to arm it? And the answer is yes. So that's nice, which is... Airbus, I like the way, so to arm the speed brakes, it's when they're off, you press to basically try and retract them again, which is obviously impossible when they're already retracted, and that arms the speed brakes, which is a nice, easy way of doing it without using any extra controls. So 10 points to Flight Factor for doing that, and I wish everybody else would do the same. Okie doke, so let's see if we can get the trim and everything. Now it looks like it wants me trimming for 26, and I've set it at 26. We're in the green band, we're within the purple band within the green band. So I'm assuming everything is on and on there. I like the flat and slat display down here. Again, that's slightly somewhat unique, I guess, to the A350. I'm sure there's other aircraft that do it, but usually you're looking somewhere over here, or of course on the Boeings you've got the old school analog displays. We've got systems, I guess, 1, 2, 3, all the backup stuff here. We've got the tire temps and pressures, yellow, green, that's going to be your hydraulics. Very nice. All right. Did the guy downstairs bugger off? He did. Let's let go. See if we get an idle taxi. And we do. Very nice slow set off. So that's nice to see. Again, one of my big complaints on some aircraft is they seem to get really sticky, like they're going through jam when you're somewhere between 0, 1 or 2 knots, somewhere around there. Seems that Flight Factor A350 doesn't have that problem, was able to go from standing very, very slowly and move forward. Sounds something that's so simple and easy to do, but so many modules, again, in every flight sim, get that wrong. Not every flight sim and every module, but a lot of modules in every flight simulator get it wrong. Whether it's xPlane, whether it's DCS, whether it's Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, for some reason, some people just don't know how to make a plane move slowly without it going through jam. Thankfully, this is not one of them. Really like that sound there of the taxiing over that boom. That's really nice. And totally accurate as well. Brings me right back to it. So unlike normally blue being to do, looks like blue just means everything. So signs on, well, the signs are already on, so it's not necessary. By the way, turn offs and nose light 2. And again, that's one of the things I don't like about a 3-position switch. If you can't manually move between the 3 position, we went from nose off to basically the takeoff position. Then it dropped back to taxi after the second click. I don't want my nose light going straight into takeoff position when I just want to taxi. And now when I'm ready for takeoff, it's going to go from taxi to off before the takeoff. I guess when we're coming into land, it will be the right way around. But other than that. Right, I'm just going to play with my parking brake, so pedals a little bit, and I was nothing too obvious there with the accumulators. I was maybe wondering if there was going to be some kind of visual representation of hydraulic pressure or fluid. Right, your side onto nav mode, we'll push that out to 40. Your side, I want airports, please, as well as the terrain. My side's going to have the weather, which should be on standby now. Signs are on. Cabin ready. Well, I hope you're ready. Spoilers arm, which we've done. Flaps as to take off. Auto brake RTO. So again, this blue to do thing is, yeah, it'd be nice to have some sort of, you know, like the other Airbuses where they turn green or they just disappear when it's done. In any case, RTO is now armed. Takeoff config test. This is one thing I prefer about the Airbuses than Boeings. Boeings, you've got to move the throttles forward whether you want to go or not. Just briefly, it's kind of like that, just to see, does it go do or not? On the Airbus, you just got a button, so there's no risk of anything anyway that can go horribly wrong. And what's the problem here? Config speed brake not retracted. That's probably because when I slammed the power forward and off, I'm guessing Airbus perceived that as a rejected takeoff, and indeed it did. So let's resolve that situation. And I've moved them forward again, so they're armed. So let's try again with the takeoff config check. Hopefully no MC this time. And indeed no MC. Everything there is green. So let's release the brakes for a second time. Everything on there looks good for a nicely set up Airbus departure, the usual dotted lines and all of that stuff. Flight director is on. Constraints. Weather my side, VOR. We've got the traffic my side, terrain on your side, as well as the airports. I think you can do more than... Yeah, you can. So Airbus normally only lets you do one of these at once, but the A350 seems to let you do more than one, which is nice. So we can have VORs, NDBs or airports. I guess it is just one there. We've got the waypoints here as well as the constraints, which is usually superfluous information, but once in a while it's useful. And I think it was, if memory recalls, we need to backtrack all the way here so that we can take the 19 departure. There we go. Alright, let's do the flight check then. So I'm putting left boot in there as opposed to just using my tiller here for steering. By the way, the tiller's not animated for some reason. That's kind of bizarre. So right boot. So the rudder's certainly working. By the way, this is a really nice clear flight control check. So there's my elevators all the way down, neutral, pulling all the way up, neutral. But we even see the little cross on here. We're rolling to the right a little bit. We see the what's the flaperons at the very end there, and then as we go further we get the spoilers coming up as well, so that's nice to see. And the flaperons, actually, it's a really nice use of it, and again, one of the like real big advantages of fly-by-wire is that you can use flight control surfaces to do more than one thing. And if that was on a Boeing, it would be an elevator and that's it. Whereas on the Airbus, well, you can hang them both down a little bit and use them as a little bit of a flap as well as your ailerons, which... Here we got the vertical profile. We see there is some kind of terrain or something there. It could be a building, but in any case, we'll be clear of it. And that, I believe... We'll have to see. If we turn around 180 degrees, does it disappear, or is it based on our flight plan, which is basically behind us anyway? So we'll see if that block disappears when we do a 180 degree turn here, and that way we'll know, does this block, is that based on where we're pointing, or is it based on where our flight plan is? In any other regards, I think we're basically good to go. It's just a case of the lights. By the way, APU, let's get rid of that. APU bleed, turn that off. Let's get the lights on now. Strobe lights, wing lights, landing lights. Now what's that? What is that alarm? We've got an alarm, but we've got no MC. That is kind of bizarre. Is it because I turned... No, it's not to do... It's not to do with the light config. We'll have to see if that disappears when we go, because that's kind of bizarre to have an alarm but with no obvious MC light with it. Oh, there it goes. Okay, who knows exactly what that was about, but thank goodness it's disappeared. Hi, Lufthansa 359, runway 19 center, clear for takeoff. I maintain 3000. Just wondering here, we've got this turn to the right, and is that just linked? Let's have a little look. Might help if I actually view the thing. So climb 191 to 820, then right turn 320, or as assigned. Yeah, so it is a prescribed turn, so it's simply just a heading. Yeah, so unlike the Concorde where we're sat 1.5 miles in front of the nose wheel, on this one we're more or less sat on it. In fact, if we take our headrest here, or it's basically right around, I think where that phone is would appear to be where the nose wheel is. So we still need to swing around a bit, but it's not going to be as excessive. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go for about 2/3 of the way from the center line to the edge of the runway, about here. I'm going to put full lock on now, and we'll see how close that gets us. Typical runway of being 150 foot. Little bit of differential thrust there, just getting us around this. And looks like that might be about bang on. Yeah, it was close enough, I think. Perhaps a hair further. Maybe next time go 3/4 of the way, but I think if we went all the way it would be a bit too far. Alright, brakes. Standing on the brakes, I think in every other regard we're good to go there. We've already turned the lights on. We've dealt with that little random alarm. We'll zoom in there to 20, but it's essentially straight ahead. 800 and change. We start the right hand turn as prescribed. Let's go for it. 3, 2, 1. wind the engines up, start the clock. And let's move for Toga, is it? Or rather the Flex. We've got Takeoff inhibit there. There we go, Flex 69. Engines are very quiet versus just general banging and packs and so on. Yeah, they leave a little bit to be desired, I think, the engine sounds. There's V1 rotate, let's go. What the hell was that? Just heard a bang. Wheels in. Hi, they retracted quick. I do like the little vapes right in front of the engine intakes there. That's a nice touch. And there's the right-hand turn. And being Airbus, I should just be able to put my nose on the crosshairs like that and then let go. So I'm going to let go right now. And yeah, it's keeping the pitch and bank going quite nice. Throttles back to climb. There we go. And let's go flaps 1. Ease off that turn a little bit and lower the nose slightly. Oh, there's 3000. Let's lower it, lower it, lower it. Still flying it manually. I never really like intercepting altitudes manually, but I guess when I've got great vertical guidance, it's quite easy. So I think we can bring the flaps all the way in. So let's go ahead and put the autopilot on. And then we'll switch in. We've got the auto flap retract, which is nice to see. So I've not yet brought the flaps in, but it's nice to see that's implemented on this. You see the slats are still out, so I'm going to bring them in now. And there we see the slats going in and all right. So there's 3000, quick as that. And we're on the, was it 320 heading? Yes, it was. We're waiting for and expecting radar vectors. So let's, while we're expecting them, in fact, we'll do it after. Let's just get on with it now for the sake of brevity. So zooming out, yeah, so it's Reginas or whatever we want to call it. Let's just call it Reginas here. Over to the right-hand side. So it looks like we've got to double back over the airport. Let's set that to thousands of feet and climb up to 10. Let's go to 12, actually. I guess we just pull it out to get the open climb, and indeed we do. And right-hand turn, nice. Again, Airbus style. The head-in brings you where you're at if you're in nav mode. Boeing, you've got to keep chasing your head and dial around after the nav mode, which seems kind of pointless, but alas, it's why there's a million differences between the two and makes them worthwhile having both. Even if it is just the 7.3 and the A320, there are more difference between those two aircraft than, say, the 7.3 and the 7.4, the A320 and the A340 or whatever. You know, it's what's really, you know, if you only want two aircraft and you can only be bothered to learn two, I really recommend getting one of the Airbus and one of the Boeings for that reason. So we are 020, we're climbing up to 12, we're on open climb. Being in the air, let's get rid of turn-offs, nose light. Again, this excessive movement here. I'm going to go logo to automatic, we'll see what that does. We'll release the cabin crew. And I now want to see if we can just, in the old style way of Airbus, go direct their Reginas without any other press. So let's try it. So I guess flight plan. Oh no, we do got, is it DIR a direct? It is. Okay, so we've got a direct button there. Now I guess we could type in any fix, or we can just select what's next, so Reginas or whatever. But I assume if we, for example, wanted to go to Maple, which is not in our flight plan, I'm assuming I can just type it in. In fact, let's practice that by typing something that's more or less on the way. Let's try laugh. I'm trying to click and for some reason it's not letting me click. Okay, let's play it safe. Direct to Reginas. There we see it puts us over into nav mode. The turn begins. We get the line on the screen, or the ND. Let's clear out all that pap. And everything there looking good. We're passing through 10, 11 now. Speed is accelerating because even though we're in open climb, we're in managed speed, which is nice to see. Cruise at 290, so I'm going to put us on for 29. Now, can I just push? I can. And now we're in regular climb mode. Or as the Boeing people say, LNAV, VNAV. Yeah, so auto scrolling through the relevant pages, we've got fuel flow up top, fuel used next, we've got block fuel, total fuel used, fuel temp, we've got the PSI there on the aircraft, so that's going to gradually increase as we get higher. We've got the cabin out there, and the cabin vertical speed, which is currently 500 feet a minute. I assume that's what it's going to stay at. Seems awfully solid. 1822, well, what's that based on? Certainly not local time here, unless did I just get my times wrong? Who knows? We've got the external air temperature of the probes as well as the static, and ISO deviation as well, so all three there. Fuel on board just in by, that's draining out fast. Is that right? No, this is kilos. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, we are in a climb, but feels like it's tipping out awfully quick. What does it actually say with regards to fuel flow? 7 tons an hour per engine, so 14 tons an hour there during the climb. Let's carry on cleaning up, or at least, you know, disarming the speed brakes, if you can call that cleaning up. So that's green, seatbelts to go. Well, not below flight level 180. And that's the minimum, but depends on the stability. More cabin annunciations that we will leave be. Yeah, so now we're on the way from Washington to New York. And again, the big zoom here. We see there JFK, not even 200 nautical miles as the crow flies. Short one. The wings are a little bit twidgety. Yes, I saw the wing vibrating as fast as that. I'd be concerned that perhaps, well, you've seen it, right? When one of the engines, you know, breaks open in flight and the cowling's hanging off, then that's sort of what you see the wing doing, but not unless, really. Just a little excessive. Again, just something for Flight Factor, I think, to tune down at some point, to tweak. Sounds, you know, not really fading out at the right. You know, I tell you what, actually, it's one of the worst. I said this not long ago for the Concorde, but it's one of the worst default sound packs you can get. Thankfully, there are people that let you download additional sound packs for this that sound better, but you got to pay for them, which, all right, somebody else made the effort, I get it, but you just think, well, if you're paying like $50, $60, whatever it is for the module up front, can't they put a sound pack with it? I mean, the Zebo manages to put a good sound pack with his, and that's free. Right, QNH. We're through into the flight levels, so let's have a look how we change that one. Is it down here? Where are we? I assume there's a button here that we just press, maybe? There we go, standard. And is that synced up? No. And I just realized the two altitudes weren't synced up, and as far as I'm aware, we did not get an altitude mismatch error caution at all. There was nothing, even when we did the takeoff checks. So again, Flight Factor's got some work to do, but whatever. Let's just standardize that for now. I do like the, again, the separate terrain here looks relatively good. And again, it's not a radar, it's a database. So I've never understood why they don't show the terrain behind. Because it's not like, you know, it's not like the needing the radar to do it. It's an onboard database. Love the vertical profile stuff down there. That's really nice. And, you know, based on the zoom, so we can see there where the descent is, and if we zoom in, of course we don't, come up to Doctor there. So again, it's nice to see the different ways, but why does it say 10 miles there and then there it's more like 12? So again, it's not, doesn't seem to be perfect. There does seem to be, for whatever reason, a discrepancy at 2 or 3 miles. We see Doctor now at 10 on the ND, whereas here it's more like 7 or 8. But regardless, it's still really nice, and you know, certainly when you are coming in over the hills, you know, I mean, in real life, it would certainly make you feel more comfortable knowing that you're completely on top of the situation with regards to terrain, even if you can't see as clearly as today. About 3,000 feet to go. Climbing just shy of 2,000. One hell of a tailwind. Look at that. 113 knots. Was not aware of that when I planned the flight. Ground speed accelerating nicely because of it. I mean, see here we're actually dropping off on the indicated airspeed, but that's because the nose is having to be dumped to make up for this ever increasing tailwind. Ground speed 541 knots, which is again, not too far away from the speed of sound. Yeah, so let's take a look then at JFK, because again, there was no plan given to us. All that we've been told is to expect runway 22 left, that's it. No approach has been given, no other stipulation. So let's have a little look. Let's get rid of Dulles and go over to JFK. And we'll start with the stars. And we've got Carmen 4. Now that's interesting, because I seem to recall that Carmen was our final, in fact, yeah, I'm sure we had this. I seem to recall Pansy and certainly Carmen. So let's have a little look down here. Well, there's Pansy. Pansy, then we've got Winks. There's Cars. And then there's Carmen. So here we're on the Victor 44 airway, whereas here we're actually on an arrival that would seem to begin at Sea Isle. And basically the arrival finishes at Carmen. Well, so I guess there's no real point grabbing that arrival, because our flight plan finishes at Carmen, which is at the same spot. The only difference here is the arrival would put us at 11,000 at 250 on the speed, whereas our regular flight plan is just going to, you know, I guess it's going to find its own way there. I'll tell you one thing I really like, and this is a huge oversight on many modules, but it is how it is in real life. And that is, even though we see here we've got Carmen, which is here, then a discontinuity, and then JFK, you can see here on the speed and on the height, the plan is to drop us down, even though there is no connection from Carmen to the airport. Now, that may or may not seem obvious, but there are so many modules that say, well, if there's no connection, I don't know how high and how fast I need to be, so I'm going to leave you up at cruise at full pace. And more modules than not leave you up at cruise at full pace. This here is what's really done, because what the FMC or the McDo does is, even though there's no route, and here after Carmen there is no route, it knows, well, Carmen to the airport is thus far, therefore I need to be roughly this high, this fast to get you from here to here on the typical, you know, 3-degree down glide, whatever it is. And so here you can see it's 250 at basically 8,000, you know, call that 7,900. See here, the prescribed height is 11. That's because what McDo here, it's not allowing for any specific arrival. It's just, you know, as the bird flies from here to here. Clearly we are going to be doing an arrival, or at least some kind of approach, even if no arrival. And we've been given 2 left, so let's have a little look. We got the ILS and interestingly nothing that takes us from Carmen, but down this way we've got Chant, which is well, it's a missed approach hold. Now we do got Norton here that's going to bring us around the houses a little bit and put us in for 2-2. Now that would be, gonna guess, the most suitable. We've also got an option over here at Symbol, which is right next to Manhattan, although up at 14,000, so you wouldn't necessarily know it as they're flying right over the top, but I guess by far here the most suitable, Norton. Now that is an ILS again, and we know that ILSs are basically the first thing that any module maker does. So I'm going to take a look at what RNAV options we've got, and it looks like Zulu and X-ray. So let's the 2 left. So let's analyze both of those. So let's here start with Zulu, and that starts ways over at Deer Park VOR. So that's certainly an option. Or, well, this one looking very similar as well. The X-ray one, less curvy, more point to point. This one over here has got what seems like more waypoints in. So we could also think about that, and again with nothing in yet. So here we are, and again one thing really nice. So have a look at this vertical profile. We're at 29,000. We've got the decel message, which I've so far ignored, and here we can see a dotted line of ideally vertical profile. It wants us to do that even though we've not sewn up our arrival, which is, you know, I'm really impressed with that, how that is connected and implemented. And so, you know, flight factor, get your weather, get your wind data link thing sorted, and get your sound pack sorted, and you've got yourself a module, man. Not entirely sure what the engines are doing here. A bit sporadic, getting a bit crazy. I think this is what the autopilot is requesting, and then the longer individual line is what the engines are actually doing. So the autopilot, it's like, doesn't really know what it wants. Now we got a crazy crosswind. Let's have a little, just an idea of how much of a crosswind this is. Let's get an external shot. Yeah, so this is at full pace on the cruise, and yeah, that's quite a crab angle there to maintain straight, and yeah, 129 knots, and it's not even a full-on crosswind, it's a quartering on the tail. Either way, let's begin descent now. And I never did release the signs, but too late now anyway. So let's drop it down to 12, and I'm going to open descent. So it seems that you click when your hand's there and you pull back to get it to pull, and you push the mouse to push, which is going to be your open climbs versus your managed climbs and descents. Again, I think the TOLIS, I'm trying to think, it's based on how high up and down the mouse is when you do it, as if it's a push or a pull. Both systems, you know, both systems work. Plus you've got like 3 different things here. So you've got the push-pull, you've got the twist left and right, and then you've got to change it modes from 100 to 1,000. So there's 3 different ways of manipulating this one switch, and that's why it, you know, you've got these three, you know, you've got, let's see, you've got the up down there, so that's changing the height. Come on, how do we get it to change between the others? There is a place somewhere where you can do it. There we go. So there you see, it's a very small zone actually to change between left and right, but there we go. So it's there. And then obviously when your hand's like that, that's the mouse icon there, that's your push-pull. So I can see that being a little bit fidgety in the heat of the moment, so it's maybe worth binding some of that. So you can see, because we started our descent late, we're coming down late, and because we're in open descent, it's just going to do, you know, the speed that it was supposed to do. So I'm going to push it in to managed and see if it's going to catch us up with where it ideally wants us. So let's hand push it in. And there we look at that, straight away snapped onto the profile, and we can see there it's dumping the aircraft down, dumping the nose, I should say, to catch up with the profile. And we can see here the range of the speed there. Ideally it wants us on 290, and within apparently these purple margins of error, so up to about 310. It will apparently, we'll see, not go any further than this upper margin here unless we specifically ask it to. And it would see it's complying with that vertical speed easing off as we get nearer the top there. Very nice. All right, well, again, we could just ILS it in, and if I was to do the ILS, clearly Norton and round this way. But again, just feels a little boring to me just because it's, you know, we know how it works. One ILS is the same as every other. I want to see if it can do this RNAV here, the RNAV Zulu for 22 left, which is what we've been given. So our initial point here for the approach is going to be Deer Park VOR, not currently in our flight plan. So let's ask for Deer Park, and then we'll ask for the RNAV 22 left. So Carmen, our final waypoint here. Select it, insert next waypoint. I'm just going to type it in, DPK, which is the Deer Park VOR. Now let's hit enter, apply. Now what? Let me try that again, DPK, enter, apply. There we go. Don't know why I had to do that twice, but twice is the charm, a bit like the stream. Okie doke. Now that is going to completely change our vertical profile, because now instead of Carmine direct to JFK, we're now on the way to Deer Park, which is just on the other side of JFK. There we can see it, DPK. And then from Deer Park, it's RNAV Zulu 22 left. So let's try it. So if it's like any other Airbus, we select our destination, we select the arrivals, runway 22 left, the approach, and have Zulu, which is going to be this one here. Okay, via Deer Park. Star, well, no star, we've discussed that. Transition, there is none, so that's fine. We'll tempi that in, and we can see there's a whole bump of stuff there. So let's go to plan, zoom in, and see if that looks anything like what we expect. We'll push the page up. So there's Deer Park, which is the end of our flight plan, and this dashed yellow line's what's in the plan. So you can see if we do accept this, we'll be turning off ever so slightly before, because of course lanes can't magically turn on a dime. Then we've got Tusti, Zakus, and a whole bunch of others. If we remind ourselves with what the approach is here, the Deer Park slightly off the screen there. Tusti, Zakus, Jervat, Sogu, and Hezor, and then we're in on the 224 final. We've also got the vertical profile here, so it looks like 3,000 at Tusty, which we see, then we drop to 19, which we see there at Zakus, and then once we're at Jervat, we're on the what is an exactly 3-degree down on a slight left turn arc here. We see that LT arc, which is here, so hopefully that'll work out nicely. We shall see. And the minimums based on the RNP, is it 0.2 of a mile or 0.3? Well, does it make it obvious on this aircraft is the question. Let's have a little look. I assume it does somewhere. Usually states it loud and proud on the ND. Generally speaking, I assume it's the same on this one. Well, let's put us into arc mode. Does it say? Well, apparently not. But either way, I'll tell you what, let's play it safe then. We'll go with 409. So where do we feed that in? We've got the LS, and then we've got the W. The W is like the bird, I believe, but you don't actually got to change over to track and flight path angle. I think you can just view it on there, so let's have a look. Yeah, so there it is. So there is, like, you know, what they'd call the bird, but without actually changing over to track and flight path angle, which is nice. And again, because it winds, we'll leave that one on. Now that we've descended from 29, we're at half the winds what they were before. Bang on profile. I'll push the range out a tad, and let's okay this. And there again, we got the approach on there as well, the RNAV 22 left. Where does it say Yankee or Zulu? I guess it doesn't. So there is a slight piece of the puzzle missing, but very minor piece. But again, not entirely inconsequential. If you were expecting the Yankee and you were given the Zulu, you accidentally selected the X-ray, well, things would start and get bother. Vertical profile looking nice the entire flight here. The ND can't fault it. Perfect. Estimated or guesstimated flight time I think was about 50 minutes. Here we are at 27. 60 miles away from JFK, although there is a little bit of a turn. Clouds there doing some nice funky effects. Let's have a little look. Still see the crosswind impacting. I do like the shading of the aircraft as it's going through clouds, whether they're near or far. It seems obvious, but something that's there we see the aircraft going back into light. Not something I think that xPlane had before version 12, at least not unless you were right next to it. But you know, they fix one thing, they break another. I'm not at all keen on this overflexing wing. Here we are, cabin in the rear, the economy, which don't have the passengers. I think that's just to basically save on resources and frame rate. Of course, when we were planning this was almost full, if you recall. And then business looks like has got a few folk in. And then I guess first class is the most densely populated part of the aircraft. At least in terms of how full it is, and I imagine that's because if you are coming out the cockpit, I mean, you're going to see this more than anywhere else. Descending on through then, and we're out of the flight levels, although it's not flashing even though we are. Let's ask JFK what's going on. I could ask the flight plan. You know what? Let's go with that. I don't want to risk the data link. I just don't. It screwed up before. Let's see if we can get the ATIS then. 128.725. And then we'll bring that over and let's turn it on, and hopefully we've got somebody on the far end. Where are we here? BF2. VHF2, radio 2.
John F. Kennedy International Information Yankee 1840 Zulu arriving runways 31 right, 22 left, departing runways 31 left, 22 right, weather, wind 240 degrees at 5 knots, visibility more than 10 miles.
I wonder if we got a performance on this.
6,000, scattered at 8,500, few at 12,000, temperature 8, dew point 2, altimeter 2974. Advise on initial contact you have information Yankee.
Well, we got Yankee coming into New York. No coincidence, I'm sure. Or rather, it is a coincidence.
Zulu arriving runways 31 right,
2974 both sides. I'm sure there's a way in the options to sync those up like most aircraft, but
240 degrees at 5 knots. Visibility.
Now, I don't know why this is still flashing, because we're well below flight level 180.
Scattered at 8,500, few at 12,000, temperature 8, dew point 2.
Let's have a look. MSA for the area is 2.9.
Information Yankee.
And height there is at 3. So, you know, we descend down to 3.
Kennedy International Information Yankee 18.
Should be fine, so let's allow our autopilots to descend to 3.
Departing runway.
We'll keep it in managed mode.
22 right, weather, wind 24.
And let's see if we do got a performance page down here.
10 miles. Sky conditions scattered at 6.
Takeoff performance.
8,500. Few.
Performance. Okay, climb, cruise. We're on the descent in green, which is nice. We've got a cabin descent rate of 350, which we're actually slightly under. I guess that's because we're got a bit of a break.
John F. Kennedy International Information Yankee.
The approach, and I'm going to fill this in now.
Runways 31 right, 22 left. Departing runways 31 left.
Well, 22 left we've got.
Weather, wind 240 degrees at 5 knots. Visibility more than 10 miles. Sky conditions scattered at 6,000. Scattered at 8,500. Few at 12,000. Temperature 8. Dew point 2. Altimeter 2974. Advise on initial contact you have information Yankee.
Oh, they want it in QNH. That's not very helpful, is it? So to switch between the two, we hit that,
Kennedy International
and it looks like it's 1007.
Arriving.
Oh, now it's changed.
Right.
297.
Runways 31 left.
74.
Right.
There we go.
Wind 2.
So if it don't let you do it, turn it on, turn it off,
Visibility more than 10 miles.
and it works.
Sky conditions scattered at 6,000.
All right, thank you for the ATIS.
100. Few at 12.
We're all good there. Here we are about approaching 10. Autopilot, at least for now, electing to hold the speed on. It's given a bit of power there. Thrust on this one is measured in percent, by the way, at least the main dial. So you can see it's electing to go almost idle there. Then as no sooner did it go idle, it asks for power again. So that could just be because there is a little bit of turbulence, who knows. Let's drop the range back and see what's the problem now.
Sir, it is customary to turn on the no smoking sign.
Well, there you go. Hope you're happy now. Landing lights are on, turn off lights are on. That should have been done the other way around, but and nose light is going to be our CTL. Finally now trying to reduce speed. I guess he's going to maintain 10 until he does. But actually no, starting to drift down through 10 even before. Naughty autopilot. Minimums then, what did we say? We was going with the more, I mean really the ANP on an aircraft like this should be right down to like less than 0.1 of a mile, I'm sure, but just in case, let's go with, I'm going to go with the barometric there, 421. Let's go with that. No additional numbers for the airline. I'd never understand. By the way, we do got a trans here. So 180. I don't know why that done autofill. Certainly been in America. Oh, so, okay. V-speeds are now here. So app 137 and landing 132. We've got a vertical deviation here, which is of slow reading like 10 feet. It's now 0, which is insanely precise. 10 feet off. I mean, you know, we're less than 10 feet, or rather more than 10 feet from here to the bottom of the plane anyway. From here to here is probably at least 10 feet, and so to be vertically, you know, we're within like that distance. It's very precise. Yeah, I thought it was let's have a little look then. Yeah, so you see the turbulence is just continuously bobbling the plane, and I think it's not that you can't get turbulence like this. I just feel it's too much in the map. If you were sat on that plane, you'd feel that. I mean, look at it. You'd feel that constantly. You'd feel like you were, you know, being shaken back. Every time those move up and down, it's like being shaken back and forth, or up and down, however you want to view it. It's just, sure, you could go through it for a while, but not everywhere all the time. And I'm seeing this everywhere all the time at the minute in xPlane. I mean, look at that. And yeah, that goes in a large way to explaining the wing flex. I did contact Austin and ask him if he could increase the size of this, and he actually wrote back to me and he said, oh, I never play on a high resolution, so I didn't realize I'll add it onto my to-do list, which I was kind of surprised that he would even bother to give me that, but he did. Oh, we got the disco effect. I thought this was sorted out so long ago on xPlane 12. I guess there are quite a lot of clouds in the immediate area, but a bit stroby it is. By the way, if you are in any way enjoying the stream and are finding it useful, at least in helping your decision, do you want this plane or not, do leave us a like. I'd appreciate it. And if you have any questions with regards to something you would like to see before I do log off with either the plane or xPlane 12, make sure you get it in now. That is assuming you're watching live, because we're getting close to touchdown, and I don't mind showing any part of it. Yeah, so look at this, speed 240. You can see ideally it wants to do 250, and actually allowing itself up to 255 knots of margin down to about 230 knots. And the most efficient glide is almost always just like 5, no more than 10 knots away from where you'd put the slats out. So, you know, you would usually call that green dot speed, right, in the Airbuses. And so the slower it flies up to green dot speed, the more efficient the angle of glide. Of course, the longer it takes, but this is how usually they're able to idle down from ways back when. All right, Deer Park then, VOR, about 5 nautical miles ahead of us. And if we take a look, looks like our VORs, the radios, are tuned in. We see both of these needles here, 1 and 2, pointing towards Deer Park. Kind of excessive. I'd be like to see auto-tune D Park on one and the other one possibly even JFK. I mean, we're that close anyway. And there's the left-hand turn, which is beginning, what, we're about 3 to 4 miles from Deer Park. So to make this turn nice and smooth, it reckons it's going to need that much distance. Velocity vectors slowly going to line up as we turn into the wind. Still got about 20 odd knots, which is now a headwind. Hey, let's start landing sort of early on checklist. I guess your approach checklist. Lights are on, nose lights to go. That's going to be our CTL. The signs are on. Everything else is on. Let's turn passenger data off. I did forget that for takeoff, but we've remembered it now. Let's give our before landing message. Again, you can where are we?
Until the aircraft comes to a complete stop.
There we go.
The fasten seatbelt sign is turned off. When preparing to depart, please make sure to...
So far, really impressed with the autopilot. It's got us bang on the ANAV approach. Again, it's not locking us down at 3,000. It's 3,000 or above. So in theory, it should thread us through Tusty at 3,000 if it's trying to be precise as possible. You know, the more time that you use in power low down, the less efficient it is on the engines. And of course, in real life, that would be avoided where possible. And so to see them simulate that reasonably accurately is nice. Looks like we're just under 5 miles to go, and then of course the final restriction here at Zakus, 1900 or above, and then at Yerva there, I think that's the FAF, is the beginning of the 3-degree down. Let's just remind us. Yeah, so there we go. The final approach point there, Yerva. 3-degree down. We're a left-hander scrolling through. We do got another couple of points in, but they're already on the approach. And again, it's nice to see this little left-hand arc. And that being one of the features, by the way, of the new RNP style ANAVs. The RNPs do allow for curves in the approaches, whereas the older ANAV only is just point to point to point. So here we go. It's dropping us at holding us at 3 just for a sec, mind you, because we've got that set. Let's allow it to continue. I'm going to push that in. And what was it? 1.9. There we go. 1.9 set. And it should catch up. We got the vertical dev, so the approach stuff is in. I'm going to hit approach, see if it's going to grab it, and indeed it does. Final app is in and on. Speed very high.
2,500.
I do hope it slows down. Let's come over to the performance page. Do we got to activate descent? Oh, I see. Green. We're already activated on the descent page. If I go for config 3, what difference does that make? Adds about, what's that, about 3 knots on? Well, the speeds are so low, the runways are so long. Let's add the 3 knots on. And usually somewhere up here you'd say that you're going to go flaps 3. It's not this time. I just realized it's got the, there we go. So where do we tell it flaps 3? Or do you not? Is it automatic these days? Left that a little bit too late. Well, let's leave it for now, unless it's somewhere really obvious here. I'm not seeing it. At least it's not jumping out at me. I'm going to focus on trying to lose some speed. We're inside 10 miles now. JFK 22 left. Runway is in sight. Let's put flaps 1. And indeed, we did get the green dot there. It was about 188, 190, something like that. So there is a green dot on this. And in theory, because final app's in, it should drop us through 1.9 and put us onto that 3-degree as prescribed. And should we miss, it's up to 3 straight ahead. So we'll dial that in as soon as we've got it. I mean, in theory, we've grabbed it. So let's see. There's 3. And indeed, the descent is continuing because final app is on. So that's nice to see. So flaps are 1. Speed is about 190. A load of blues to do's just came in. Signs are on, which we've done. Cabin ready. Well, we're going to say it is. Gear down to go. Flaps landing to go. Spoilers arm. spoilers are armed, so flaps and gear to go, and that's it. Range 5 miles. Let's go flaps 2. We're getting kind of close. We're right on the eyebrows for flaps 3, so I'm going to use the gear as a little bit of a speed brake there. And now we're well below eyebrows. I'm going to use flaps 3 for braking, even though clearly we're at a speed where we certainly don't need flaps 3, so let's do it. And did we say we were landing flaps 3 after all that? We did, so let's leave them there, despite not finding the button. In fact, you know what? Just before it starts ringing and dinging at me.
1,000.
I mean, it could be automatic, but I don't know. Let's go flaps 4. And I feel like I'm well over speed here, about 30 knots hot, but I don't know, with about 3 miles to go, I'm sure it should sort itself out. The trend is certainly going in the right direction. By the way, still fully automatic. We're on an INAV approach, and it is dropping us out almost on the center line, which is really nice to see. I mean, right now, I couldn't tell the difference between INAV or ILS at this point. It's that close.
100 above. 500. Minimum.
Minimum. I just realized I need to set up my disconnect button. I've pressed it now.
300.
I'll tell you what. Oh, there we go. It's finally disappeared. The controls are extremely sloppy. Like, I'm moving my stick. I wish I could show this. Like, does the stick...
100, 90.
Yes, I'm making...
80, 70, 60, 60.
Look, as I'm moving the stick, how slow the... I mean, you may say, well, duh, it's a big plane. Oh, look at that, the auto rudder. I'm not moving my pedals there. That's fly-by-wire doing its thing. Yeah, so there's... When I say sloppy or sluggish, it's just because it's a big, you know, it's a big plane. I would expect it to be slightly quicker though, just because you're asking for a roll rate, aren't you, with Airbus? And usually, you know, it moves controls as required to give you a roll rate. All right, missed approach, so full power, flaps 3, wheels up, and onto the flight directors.
Terrain. Terrain.
And I'm going to reduce from toga to go around. Oh, go around soft. Nice to see it. Let's get the autopilot in. 3,000. So we're not really going very fast there. It's probably slower even on takeoff because we're flaps 3 instead of, you know, you go 1, wouldn't you? Maybe 2. Right, thrust back to climb from go around soft, so climb is in. Continuing up to 3, and looks like everything as prescribed there. I'm not going to go all the way out there, it's going to take too long, but it's just nice to see that it's going to work. So let's bring flaps in a notch. And let's just see if we can real quickly implement another approach. So... we got the disco, and then I guess it's going to rig us up for the identical approach unless we ask different. So that's nice to see as well. So I'm going to select this, see if we can change it slightly to 2-2. I never did see, actually. What was that third option? I saw... what did we get? We got Zulu here. Here we got X-ray. So what was the Yankee? I missed that. 2-2 Yankee. Kind of a coming out of Deer Park, but then just a straight on into 2-2 without the curve. Yeah, so very, very minor changes. Regardless, we'll spin round. I think I'm going to take the X-ray, and we'll see if we can go direct to cap it. Yeah. So bring it in nice and tight. So X-ray, and we'll see if we can go direct to cap it. So we got Wickle or Deer Park. Let's just say none, because we're going to change it ourselves anyway. No star, no transition. Okie doke. Cap it is. Cap it is. So let's okay that. Let's give ourselves a manual turn to the left. I don't know, about 110, something like that. We'll pull that out. 3,000 speed at 220, that's fine. Speed brakes are still armed. I just realized, so one thing I did forget to do, and there was no notification about it, was the auto brake here, and it's this little dial that's a little bit not obvious, but once you start turning it, not only do you get a little green thing there, but actually I'm sure, yeah, there it is above there. So you see that's auto brake 2, so if you turn it there, you've got auto brake low 2, and it's the fatter of these two. You've got 3 and high, so I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4. No brake to vacate. Would be really nice to see that implemented in the Airbuses at some point by Flight Factor or whoever, but alas, it's not in there yet. So let's go for auto brake 2. Push the range out. Yeah, so there we see it. So I think I'm going to go somewhere like 070. Call this the downwind. And how high at cap it? 2.9. Well, we're basically there. And this now will be full stop landing. There's Freedom Tower, very edge of Manhattan. By the way, it doesn't show very many buildings from this distance, does it? And it looks like a little bit of rain now. Yeah, so here we see the difference between the heading and the track thanks to this crosswind. You see we're heading there 050, but with the winds there blowing us off track, something like 057 degrees. And theory, where we've got, yeah, here we go. So this would be a traditional bird button here. So heading switches to track, and VS changes to flight path angle. Or it can be like a bone and go, right, well, that's like about 7 degrees. So if I wind it in 7 degrees, that should put us on roughly 050 track. Let's see if that pans out. Oh, it's rolling out right about now. And what do you know? Well, it's relatively close. Within a degree or so anyway. Yeah, it's worked. It's about bang on. So that's the Boeing way of flying a track. Unless, of course, you ask the FMC to do it, in which case it will fly it exact. I do like that the Airbus has got a button to let you basically lazily fly a track without having to worry about that sort of thing. As well as the option to fly a flight path angle as well as the VS, which is nice as well. Yes, I'm looking to get about 90 degrees away from Cockpit here, and then I'll ask autopilot to go direct, and I'll give it clearance to drop down to 2.9. In fact, you know what? Let's just see how well it does if we ask to do it now. Kind of curious, how well can you intercept? So direct to Cockpit, on your way. Quick as that, everything begins unfolding in a way that you'd expect. I tell you what, I feel really bad actually, because I went to fly this the other day and, you know, made it very clear that it's the Airbus A350 by Flight Factor, and I was setting up and I asked for the wins on the data link and it completely crashed xPlane, and I said, well, I could delete this video, but you know what, I'm gonna make a notice, put it up front and say, just to let you know that this video, that the game crashes before we get into the air. But I'm going to leave it on because I want people to see that the state that it's at. And on the off chance Flight Factor see it, it's going to give them a little bit of motivation to sort this particular issue out. And that was, you know, the end of it. And I thought, bah, that sucked, didn't it? What a waste of time. And here I am in the same plane just a few days later, having been away just the last couple of days or so. And I have to say, as long as you don't touch the downloading the wins through the data link, it seems to be perfect. Like, really enjoying it. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple of issues around the edges and certainly no fan of the sounds. But other than that, in terms of the way it flies and interacting with the flight plans, SID stars, updating things on the go, doing the go around, all of that sort of stuff, really, really liking it. Let's arm the approach, and we see AppNav is already boxed and kicked in. Let's drop it down to 2.9 as stated. I think I'm going to ask to manage that. Again, I could just level change, but for the sake of 100 feet, who cares? Hang on, was that flap relief? Yeah, look at that. So I've asked for flaps 2. We're too fast for flaps 2, and it's automatically given us flap relief, which is, again, really nice to see. Some aircraft do that, but only if there's wind gusts. But it's nice to see anyway, like a self-protect thing. And now that we're below the red, we see it dropping off. Now, for some reason, it still wants to fly us too fast. So I'm going to come over to the performance page. We're in go-around mode. So how do I get it back into... There we go. Activate the approach. Confirm. Activate approach. Confirm. I don't know why you have to press that twice. But you do. And we're on it. And it's grabbed final lap even though we're in the turn, which, again, real nice to see. And I've said before, this will be a full stop. Autopilot doing a real nice job there. Again, despite the crosswind, despite the crazy approach that we give it. We go, what was that, about 120 degrees or so we asked it to turn. And it's put us out more or less right on the money within 0.1 of a nautical mile, which is impressive. And based on that, I'm going to disconnect early.
2000.
Whoa, no, that's not what I was wanting to do. Come on, let me... Okay, so they've certainly not implemented that button there, so let's just press it there. There we go. Right, my plane then, and I'm going to disconnect the auto throttle as well. I just fancy giving it a go, so I'm just going to move them around myself for a bit. Flight directors remain on, and I'll follow them at least just for now. And again, this nice little offset approach that is prescribed. Let's dump the gear and flaps 3. And are we armed there? We are, we're armed. And yeah, auto brakes 2. By the way, my engines right now are fully idle, so it looks like when it says 1.2% or something like that, that is actually fully idle. I can't get less than that. And I don't know if that's to do with the packs or what. If I turned engine bleeds off, would it let me have less? Who knows? In fact, you know what? Why don't you try it then instead of just going on about it? So let's try, where are we here? Turn engine bleed 1 off. And there's your answer. No. And flaps full.
100 above.
Turn the bleed back on. And we're pretty much on the money there. Now I'm wondering if I follow the flight directors, is it going to line me up, or is that well, I don't know. There is a little bit of a turn here, so let's follow it. See if it does drop us right on. And there we go. Now it's switched over to heading mode here. So close though.
$200.
And if I put, let's see if I can quickly do this. Where are we here? Flight controls. There we go. So as I move the stick.
90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 40, 40.
Yeah, flight by wire is doing its thing.
30, 20, retard, 10.
And there we go. Oh, look at all those boards go up on that diagram. I really like that. I'll just give it idle reverse. Auto brake 2. And again, we were relatively light. Slows us down, no bother at all. And yeah, let's vacate here. So there we go, 1 hour, 1 minute. So yeah, I guess 50 minutes or so flight time. And allowing us there for the 11 minutes where we spun off and came back round. That was nice. Stop the clock. And let's have one little look at the landing from here. Moment of suspense, and let's roll it there. Is that? There we go. I mean, I realised I were, rushing to land. I was trying to have a little look at the flight control display there, which was actually really nice to see. And then the board's coming up. And there you can see why. I will at one point do a video on this, but you know those channels where they go and camp near an airport and they film with a big zoom lens, and they usually cast it live on YouTube now. They make the crosswind landings look real dramatic even though they're not. And it's all to do with the compression effect on a lens that you get. So the more you zoom in on it's not just planes, it's anything, the more crazy out of control the thing looks like it was. And so when they show you these replays, it looks like you've got planes that are swerving all over the runway, almost crashing. And here's a little example of it. Whoa, he's like, whoa, steady on there, mate. You're flying off the runway, mate. And then let's come into the cockpit or into the passengers. This is the same, obviously, replay. And look at it. Is it like it's not swerving around at all? Sure, there's a little bit of motion, but nothing like as dramatic as a massive zoom appears. And that's all to do with the compression effect. And that's to do with photography and lenses, zoom lenses specifically. So for those not aware of that, I'm sorry I've ruined your I've ruined your swerving planes almost look like they crash. I wonder, does this work on the replay as well, this little display here? Oh, it does.
30, 40.
Okay, that was a little surprise. Often when you do replays, the sort of internal
10,
glass cockpits
10.
don't really work properly, but I didn't really see what goes on. I'm sure the trim then went down as well by itself. See there, me dancing on the rudder pedals, but I'm sure I saw the trim. I don't know if it went up or down, but either way, it did one or the other. I'm sure of it. Well, regardless, I think that's going to be it for me today. Yeah, there we see the trim going down, it would seem. So if... by the way, the stab trim is the entire thing. Let's just unlock that, because some people get confused with this, and I don't blame them, because it's different on, like, fighter aircraft. But if we take a look here... If I move my stick forward and back, just to have a look at the back there, that's what happens, right? I'm pulling it all the way back, I'm going to let go, push it all the way forward, and now I'm going to let go. The stab is this entire thing. Now I've got all my trim button down, and it's obviously moves a lot slower, but I'm spinning forward now. Now I'm going to spin it aft. In fact, if I zoom in a little bit more, perhaps you'll see the... perhaps if I zoom here, look, these red lines perhaps show it. So you can see it moving now, the entire stab, right? Hence stab trim, or just trim for short. But there you can see it. And so that is the difference between trim on, you know, on an airliner, the entire thing stab, the entire stab, versus just this little bit at the back. And that's why obviously a runaway stab trim is so deadly, because this entire thing is more powerful than what a pilot can do with his hand. He has only got access to like a third of the stab in total with his, you know, with the control column, or in this case, the side stick. All right, that really is it. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, wherever in the world you may be, take care. Hope to see you again soon. And until then, be good. And if you can't be good, be careful. And if you can't be careful, buy a pram. Bye-bye.